Welcome to the January program of JW Broadcasting. This month you'll meet a sister who gave up fame and a well-paying job to focus on her service to Jehovah. And we'd like to take you behind the scenes to show you how our literature is distributed from the printery to congregations around the world. Also, you'll enjoy a presentation about the importance of following Bible principles when disagreements occur.
Are you all my personal dreams? Everything you know is in your mind.
2005, a faithful slave provided counsel regarding higher education in the October 1st, 2005 issue of the Watchtower, pages 26 to 50. The article was entitled, "Parents, What Future Do You Want for Your Children?" The cover of the very next issue, October 15, 2005, asked the question, what is the best education? You may have noticed that we've not published that thorough of a discussion on the subject since that time. Why is that? Has the governing body changed its position regarding the pursuit of higher secular education? No. We feel
Are you all my
that
personal
all of the cautions that we have addressed in the past are still valid. However, our goal now is to focus on and intensify our promotion of the pursuit of divine education. If parents and young ones are motivated to avidly pursue divine education, the quest for higher secular education becomes less and less of an issue. As most of you know, I am a father. My wife and I raised two boys in the church. Once a father, always a father. So even though my sons are grown and married, I still think like a father. And that is why I wanted to address this subject on JW Broadcasting. Higher education. What do we mean when we use that expression? The October 1st, 2005 issue of the Watchtower that I referred to earlier provided a definition. It used the example of the educational system in the United States, acknowledging that it involves 12 years of basic education in public schools. Then it stated, thereafter, students may choose to attend university for 4 or more years, leading to a bachelor's degree or two, postgraduate studies for careers in medicine, law, engineering, and so forth. Such university education is what is meant when the term higher education is used. It further stated, on the other hand, there are technical and vocational schools offering short-term courses that result in a certificate or diploma in some trade or service. We realize educational systems vary from place to place. In some countries, higher education is provided by the government, free of charge. However, the cost of obtaining university training is not our primary concern. It is the potential for spiritual harm that has moved us to provide the cautions we have shared in the past. Ultimately, it is the decision of the parents as to the amount of secular education they feel is necessary for a child to later care for a family of his own. As parents, we would be remiss if we did not encourage our child to pursue a skill or trade that would enable him to start off a marriage successfully. Having said that, it does not change the fact that all too often our young people have met with spiritual disaster, especially after leaving home and living on a university campus. So parents and children, you need to have a goal and you need to have a plan. If you're missing either one, Satan will provide it for you. Young people, Ask yourself, why am I considering additional education? Is it because I'm pursuing a specific skill or trade to support my service to Jehovah? Or have I been pressured by the system into believing that higher education will somehow make me a more respected person or lead me to a better life? Let me review the scriptural basis for our previous published concerns about higher education. As an example, 1 Corinthians 15:33 says, "Bad associations spoil useful habits." While it is true that the ancient city of Corinth was known for its immoral lifestyle, what was the Apostle Paul primarily concerned about when he penned those words? In verse 12 of the same chapter, he made clear that his comment about bad associations had to do with what the other persons believed. It was a doctrinal issue. If we are in continued association with those who do not believe the same, it can erode our thinking and convictions. Some have felt that spending time with non-believers in a university setting is no different than working secularly with those who do not share our beliefs. And in fact, bad associations in the workplace can be a real danger. However, it is one thing to work on a job with others and quite another matter to immerse oneself in an institution of learning. In Romans 12:2, Paul said to stop being molded by this system of things, but be transformed by making your mind over. We are to be careful that this system does not mold or shape our thinking. The verse said to make over your minds, not hand over your minds. Higher learning can easily influence thinking and attitudes. Elders in congregations that are in close proximity to universities are well aware of the repeated scenario of parents coming to the Kingdom Hall with a child that they're dropping off to attend the nearby university. Sadly, often in a few weeks or months, the child begins missing meetings. And not too long into the school year, he totally disappears. Then the parents are upset with the local body of elders for not shepherding their child. My question is, who dropped them off at the university? So where does the responsibility really lie? When we make a decision, we must realistically also accept the consequences. Turn with me to 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 20. This was written by Paul as an illustration for Timothy to consider. Now, it makes sense that the large house commented on refers to the congregation. And the utensils of varying value would be like individual members of the congregation. 2 Timothy 2, verses 20 through 22. Now in a large house there are utensils not only of gold and silver, but also of wood and earthenware, and some for an honorable use, but others for a use lacking honor. So if anyone keeps clear of or doesn't associate with these ones, he'll be an instrument for an honorable use, sanctified, useful to his owner, Jehovah God, prepared for every good work. So flee from youthful desires, but pursue righteousness, faith, love, peace, along with those who call on the Lord out of a clean heart. If we should be that careful about our association inside the congregation, the application is even more appropriate when it comes to institutions of secular learning. I have long said, the better the university, the greater the danger. The most intelligent and eloquent professors will be trying to reshape the thinking of your child, and their influence can be tremendous. One mom, I recall, asked me to try and help her son who was attending a prestigious name university in Rhode Island. After visiting him, I later had to inform her that her son now believed in evolution. She refused to believe it until he finally told her himself. How sad. In Romans chapter 14, it counsels us not to judge or become overly critical of the decisions of others. As we mentioned earlier, ultimately the parents must decide how much education a child needs to succeed in life. But does that mean that any decision a parent makes regarding a child's education is fine with Jehovah? Follow along with the reasoning in Romans chapter 14, verses 10 through 12. But why do you judge your brother? Or why do you also look down on your brother? And here's a valid point. For he will stand before the judgment seat of God. For it is written, as surely as I live, says Jehovah, to me every knee will bend, and every tongue will make open acknowledgement to God. Here, Jehovah guarantees that one day, every person on earth will be a true worshiper of him. Will you be there? Will your son or daughter be among those alive at that time? Do your personal decisions matter? Yes. Look at verse 12. So then, each of us will render an account for himself to God. Yes, we all will have to answer to Jehovah for the decisions we make today. May we all decide to play it safe before our God. Think of all the opportunities there are now to enjoy divine education, congregation meetings, family worship, assemblies and conventions, the jw.org website, and the station you're watching right now. But in addition to all of that, the curriculum for the Pioneer Service School has been revised and is getting superb reviews by those attending. Then there's the new curriculum for the School for Kingdom Evangelizers that bolsters and trains students for a career in a variety of theocratic privileges. In addition to promoting divine education, what secular skills will we be promoting? Skills that will be useful to God's organization now and after Armageddon. For example, we need construction skills around the world right now. And think about this. We will not need doctors or lawyers after Armageddon, but we will need carpenters and plumbers and similar construction trades. It requires faith to decline higher education and have the confidence that our material needs will be cared for by training in other fields of employment. Speaking of lawyers, we have an interesting perspective from Brother Philip Brumley of the legal department. Let's go to our Patterson studio and listen to an interview of him conducted by Brother David Schaefer, a helper to the teaching committee.
Thank you very much, Brother Morris. And we're delighted to have with us Brother Philip Brumley, overseer of the legal department. He's been a full-time servant for the past 41 years, and for the last 28 years has been overseer of the legal department. Brother Brumley, thank you very much for taking the time to be with us today. I know you have a very busy schedule.
My pleasure.
How did it come about that you came to work in the legal department?
So I was working in the carpenter shop one day, and I got a telephone call from Brother Charles Steele. The governing body asked Brother Steele who could go through law school to become an attorney. The organization needed a few attorneys to help defend the rights of Jehovah's Witnesses. So Brother Steele asked me, or basically gave me the assignment, we want you to become a lawyer.
So the organization made a decision to send you through law school. What effect did that have on you?
Something happened that I was not prepared for. When a person goes to law school, the instructors, law professors, essentially tell the class, you're the hope of humanity. you happen to have been born in the best country in this planet, and you happen to be among the few in this country who have the circumstances to be able to attend law school. You are the future presidents, governors, senators, judges. But not only that, you're also the future social activists, the ones who are going to protect the disenfranchised, the poor, the one who needs their rights protected. If you do well, civilization will do well. If you do poorly, humanity may not survive. Now that may sound like a grandiose statement, but when you hear that repeated over a 4-year period, it can start creeping into your mind. Another thing that happened related to that was there's a fierce spirit of competition in law school. And I brought with me the notion of this is a Bethel assignment, so I want to do well. Not just well, but very well. And David, in the first year, I scored rather poorly. And that shocked me. I thought I have to do better than this. A deep spirit of competition came into my being, where I would devote whatever time was required to do well. And in one sense it worked, because when I graduated cum laude, which means in the top 10% of the class. But both the spirit of competition and the thought that somehow you were special because you had this training had marked my personality.
So how did you come to discern that this kind of thinking was rubbing off on you?
In all candor, David, I didn't discern. It wasn't until after I had gotten out of law school that my wife Elizabeth sat me down one day and in so many words told me, "You're not the man I married." And I was taken aback. What do you mean? She pointed out the character flaws that had developed in me, ambition, egotism, selfishness, combativeness, being argumentative. And the more I listened to her, the more I realized she's absolutely right, that I had allowed these defects to creep into my personality. The next thing was what to do about it. And it's not like going into a dark room and flipping on the light. It's not like recognizing that you have character flaws that need work and next week you've got it cared for. In all candor, David, it was a lengthy process to get these elements out of my system.
What did you do?
I had to get back into a genuine spiritual routine and to reassess the motives behind what I was doing. Rather than being self-motivated, as in, I want to do a good job so that it looks good for me or it reflects well on me. The real point is to serve Jehovah, to seek kingdom interest, to do what Jehovah wants to have done. So the actual routine, real earnest prayer, reading the Bible daily, going to the meetings and really participating in them, and having a meaningful ministry, getting those spiritual priorities first in my life again, as they had been before, put me back on the right track.
So this was a number of years ago now. Mm-hmm. You're all better? Mm-hmm. Perceive no residual effects then from the training?
We have to keep working on these things. You always have to assess motivation. A sister who's serving here at the Bethel family, who also has several degrees to her name, said it well when she said, "I'm still working to get the venom of self-importance out of my mind." So I work very hard, David, to make sure that humility is not a front, but it's from my bones. It's really what I am on the inside. When the scripture says doing nothing out of contentiousness, but looking at others as being superior to you, that's the attitude to have. And then candidly, you give Jehovah something to bless. When we obtain a legal victory or a development happens that's favorable to Jehovah's Witnesses, all thanks go to Jehovah, because in the years that I've been serving in the legal department, I can assure you that it is not because of the expertise of those of us who happen to have this privilege of service. Rather, it's because there's a spiritual motivation to our work, to where we work hard and then see what Jehovah wants to do with the matter. And time and again, David, we've seen Jehovah's hand in our work. And when something favorable happens, rather than in any way thinking, well, that was because I did such a good job. The genuine reality of it is that Jehovah did a good job. This was what Jehovah wanted to have happen, and that's why we were successful.
So Philip, you're an attorney, you serve at Bethel. Undoubtedly, young people have come to you asking your opinion on this. What do you tell a young person who's considering pursuing higher education?
Well, the first thing that anyone should do is to ask themselves, to closely examine themselves as to the motive. Is the motive really to seek first the kingdom, to use some additional schooling to facilitate pioneering or serving at Bethel or serving where there's a greater need? Or actually is the motive one of obtaining a certain standard of living or a certain degree of prominence? So the real core issue is why is an individual obtaining this additional training? The second thing for someone to keep in mind is to be focused on what they really are going to learn. To attend a university learning things that have little to do with what one can do to earn a living really serves no purpose. On the other hand, if a person happens to have an inclination towards medicine, becoming a nurse rather than becoming a doctor could be an appropriate step. If a person has an inclination towards the law, becoming a paralegal rather than an attorney could be an appropriate step. You see, a person could be a nurse or a paralegal and easily work part-time and support themselves as a pioneer. But if a person becomes a doctor or an attorney, what you will find is that you will invariably have to work full-time. You will invariably have to be paying off significant student debt. And it's going to take quite a lot of time to get this kind of degree. So rather than devoting or allowing this world to consume 4, 6, 8, or 10 years of studies, why not focus on 2 years of study to get some technical training that would facilitate or help someone to become a good regular pioneer?
Well said. Thank you very much for taking the time with us today. It's been a real delight to be with you. And now we go back to Brother Morris in Brooklyn.
Thank you, brothers, for sharing that very interesting perspective about the subtle mental conditioning that can transpire when exposed to higher education. Brother Brumley's experience in law school was nearly 30 years ago. Given the spiritual dangers involved, though, the governing body has decided that if we need additional attorneys in the future, we will not expose a member of the Bethel family to the environment of higher education. One brother likened his experience in a university setting to being in a house that is on fire. Spiritually speaking, he said, even if you escape alive, your clothes still smell like smoke. It has an effect on you. Higher education often instills a sense of superiority and self-reliance that is in direct opposition to the Christian personality. Like the smell of smoke on clothes, these traits can be absorbed very quickly and can be very difficult to get rid of once they're part of the fabric of your personality. A circuit overseer sent me a letter in which he described what he called a picture-perfect witness family until the oldest son received a full scholarship to attend a university. The university was an hour and 45-minute drive from home. The family wrestled with the decision to send him off for his extra schooling. Finally, the opportunity to get this education basically free of charge won out. The scholarship included housing in a co-ed dorm at the university. Within just a few weeks, the son called his parents to say that he could not remain faithful to Jehovah in this environment. He begged his parents to let him come back home. The parents told him, no, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Figure it out. The short story is the son left the truth. The parents divorced. His siblings are not doing anything for Jehovah. So sad. The opportunity of a lifetime turned out to be not much of a life at all. In contrast, one mother who was a single parent related this experience. When her son was a senior in high school, he was offered a university scholarship. The mom was concerned when her son seemed to be considering accepting the scholarship. She did not initially come right out and say no. Instead, she expressed her view by reminding him of the principle of giving our first fruits, our best, to Jehovah. She said, the years after high school are your best years because you are young and strong and healthy, and you don't have a lot of obligations to complicate your life. Why not give your first fruits to Jehovah and pioneer for a year, and then consider how much additional education is required? Her son decided to pioneer and work part-time instead of accepting his scholarship. He later served at Bethel. Looking back, he is absolutely convinced that this was the best decision he could have made. As a father, my heart goes out to you parents, and please understand that we want the same thing for your children that you do. We want them to be able to care for their future physical needs responsibly. But at the same time, an extended application of 3 John verse 4 applies. There it says, no greater joy do I have than this, that I should hear that my children go on walking in the truth. Remember, divine education truly is the opportunity of an everlasting lifetime. If you'd like to see interviews with some that have embraced divine education, go to the Interviews and Experiences category here on JW Broadcasting. We've gathered some comments made by both students and instructors that are applicable to all of our schools, whether Gilead, the School for Kingdom Evangelizers, or any other theocratic curriculum. The featured piece is entitled, Benefits of Divine Education. Still, no matter how much education we get, it is all in vain if we don't apply what we learn. After being taught by Jehovah, some of our brothers and sisters have made great sacrifices to be able to serve him more fully. Sister Yoshi Nagata from Japan is one of them. She gave up a career that many in the world spend a lifetime pursuing. This is her story.
I was a novelist. Young people sent me about 100 fan letters each month. I became famous and felt I was contributing to society. Eventually, I entered the world of TV and became an announcer. I had expensive dinners and clothes. That was my life. Do you think I was happy? I looked so to others. But the more money and fame I gained, the more it drove me to work. New jobs, position, and material things. These were things I thought I wanted. But when I got them, what can I say? My heart felt starved. I was never happy at all. A pioneer sister who was conducting the Bible study with my mom talked to me about the words of King Solomon. Everything is futile. These words touched my heart. I felt, this is how I feel. This is the truth. Whatever I gain is futile and just makes my heart starve. I started to study the Bible. Then I suddenly got more job offers, especially for advertising immoral movies and writing occult novels. I felt I am being used by Satan. I made up my mind. I will quit my job. The Bible truth I was learning satisfied my hungry heart. 10 months later, I was baptized. Now my loving husband and I are in a congregation where the need is great and enjoying pioneering. My husband is a home tutor and I am working part-time at a store. I only have 1/50 of my former income. There are no more fancy brand name clothes or expensive dinners. We are still learning how to save money and make our life simple. But this is really enjoyable. Living a simple life, learning local dialects, making new friends, and delivering God's word to the people. This is a truly satisfying life. Do you think I look happy? I don't just look happy, I am happy.
What a commendable attitude. The world really has nothing to offer that can give us lasting joy. But focusing on our service for Jehovah is truly rewarding. And this applies to whatever country we are from. We actually have some experiences we'd like to share with you from our brothers and sisters in Malawi in Southeast Africa. A member of their branch committee visited us recently and shared this report with our Bethel family.
Despite a 26-year ban, the theocratic landscape in Malawi is changing for the better. What has contributed to such a change? Largely, divine education. Specifically, the schools for single brothers, Christian couples, have had a major impact on advancing theocracy. Starting with Ministerial Training School and Gilead graduates, the real excitement came in 2008 when the first class of MTS was held in the vernacular language in Malawi called Chichewa. To date, over 400 brothers, 36 Christian couples, and 47 traveling overseers and their wives have shared this specialized training that they received with those even in the most remote parts of Malawi. As a result, congregations are being stabilized and built up in the faith. But why is this such a thrilling development for Malawi? Well, as we all know, Satan can use a country's environment or culture to stifle theocratic progress, and Malawi is no exception to this. For example, typical rural life in Malawi does not involve keeping to a schedule or time. Sorry for that. Just imagine, brothers, you don't have a watch or a clock. The only way of telling the time is to look at the position of the sun in the sky. You have between 4 and 10 or possibly more children to get ready and prepare for theocratic activities. You don't have a vehicle. There's no public transport, but you've got to walk between 1 and 3 hours or 2 or 3 hours to get to the Kingdom Hall. Now, with that picture in mind, how likely is it that meetings will start, run, and finish on time? The answer's obvious, isn't it? Another challenge in Malawi is chief mentality. You see, in Malawi, village life revolves around the authority of one man or woman who is appointed as chief. When this is the norm, it's a huge challenge not to allow this structure to creep into the Christian congregation. Thanks to the training mentioned earlier of all the theocratic schools, though, congregations are experiencing an increase in shepherds who really shepherd the flock, as promised by Jehovah at Jeremiah chapter 23 and verse 4. What other exciting developments are we seeing in Malawi? remote translation officers. Currently, we have one fully operational RTO in the north of Malawi. And happily, as we speak now, 2 new RTOs are also under construction. Singing kingdom songs has always been an absolute delight for the brothers in Malawi, just as it is here. However, with little money to spend and no electricity in over 80% of the kingdom halls in Malawi, learning how to sing the new kingdom songs has been very difficult. For example, oftentimes the brothers just read the songs out loud, not really knowing the tune. Therefore, recently, the organization researched what type of appliance could be designed and manufactured specifically to address this problem. The appliance would have to be portable, extremely durable, simple to use, and chargeable even in remote areas where there's no electricity. Quite a feat to accomplish. As always, though, Jehovah's organization has come up with a solution. The governing body has approved the purchase of a simple, purpose-built music player, which is now in the process of being sent out to all congregations, even the remote parts of Malawi, with this need. How did congregations respond upon hearing about this new provision? Just to give you an example of one letter, an excerpt from one letter. This is a translation of what the brothers wrote, and very typical of what many letters contain. To be honest, brothers, we've not been doing very well at singing. Isn't that sweet, honestly, beautiful? But when we get this music player, we will really, really sing praises to Jehovah. Please, 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 please send us one as soon as possible. Yes, brothers, this appreciation has moved many congregations to send with their letter even a voluntary donation, which is truly, as Jesus said at Luke chapter 21, verse 4, a gift not out of their surplus, but out of their want. As you can see, brothers, these few highlights give evidence of Jehovah's loving watch care over his people in Malawi. We give thanks to Jehovah for his education, his building programs, and his generosity.
It is evident by these experiences that the brothers in Malawi are working hard to distribute spiritual food. And when you and I receive new literature at conventions or in the Kingdom Hall, we always marvel at the work that goes into producing our magazines and other publications, the well-written articles, the beautiful artwork, and how it builds our faith. But how often do we think about the efforts involved in getting the literature from Bethel to the hands of the publishers? Join us as we visit the shipping department at the Canada branch to learn more.
If you talk to a man in a language he understands, it will reach his mind. But if you talk to him in his mother tongue, you will not only reach the mind, but the heart. That's why we print our magazines in so many different languages. For example, someone in your congregation may request a magazine in Cebuano. In Canada, we print dozens of languages, but Cebuano isn't one of them. It's printed in Japan. After it's printed, it's put into a box. Customs paperwork is filled out, and it travels thousands of miles on a boat where we receive it in Canada. And that's the journey of just one magazine. We have hundreds that have to take the same trip. Each magazine is handpicked by 5 or 6 people. They'll fill over 20,000 congregation orders in a couple of weeks. Every order is checked for accuracy. You don't forget the fact that each order you fill represents a person that has specifically asked for that magazine. hundreds of thousands of personal orders will be filled. No other organization does this, goes to these lengths and to this expense to fill a handful of orders in some exotic language. But Jehovah's people do, because we care about every single person who wants to hear the good news.
Along with those finished cards, many items are printed and set aside to be merged together later. It all starts in local congregations. Orders are placed and are later submitted online. They're processed and automated machines count them out. This is where our work starts. In order to complete each request, it takes a team of about a dozen people working together. First of all, a worker cartons and puts a label on the box. The label contains all the information that's needed for that order, and each person references it as the work is done. The foreign magazines that were prepared earlier are added. Then we add Kingdom Ministries, Study Edition Watchtowers, as well as CDs and large print magazines. The work is hard, and it doesn't let up. It's challenging to maintain the focus that you need. You want every order to be perfect. We all do. At the same time, you realize that everyone else is relying on you to keep up. It would be easy to look at the work as just a production line filled with hard workers. But there's a camaraderie here and a recognition that what we're doing will have an impact on people's lives.
The first Watchtower had a total circulation of 6,000 copies. One pallet today may contain up to 50,000 magazines. One pallet. In our warehouse during the peak periods, many hundreds of pallets will be stored, waiting to be shipped. We have well over 1 million pounds of literature during that time. There can be as many as 4 trucks a day leaving with the finished pallets, blanketing all of North America. Others will go by train, plane, and boat to lands all over the earth. The growth of the work is staggering, and you get to glimpse the scope of it when you work here. It's a privilege to be the last ones to work with the literature before it leaves for its destination. But we're just one branch out of many doing work on this scale. In the United States, Mexico, Brazil, Colombia, South Africa, Nigeria, Germany, Britain, Australia, Japan, India, and Korea. Pallets and containers are going out to the field every day. And all of this starts with a single roll of paper. Paper that was transformed into life-changing material.
It's encouraging to see how the brothers in shipping departments around the world work so hard that we can receive spiritual food. You can tell they love their brothers and sisters. And there truly is no limit to how much we can do for our fellow believers. Jesus said in John 15:13 that no one has loved greater than this, that someone should surrender his life in behalf of his friends. For example, during World War II, many refused to betray their brothers and sisters. In October last year, a city in the Netherlands unveiled a remembrance plaque in honor of a brother who did just that. His name was Herman van Elburg. Because of his loyalty to his brothers, he died in a concentration camp in Germany.
Brother van Elburg was a young Dutch man raised during the post-World War I era, who enjoyed life like all young men his age. He loved playing chess and following the latest football results, and was the proud father of 2 children, his daughter Henny and his son Fritz. Together with his wife Lis, he created a cozy home for them, which was located in the Azaliastraat in the city of Zwolle in the Netherlands.
My parents had the habit to study together on Saturday evening. And I had to read the first 2 paragraphs. And I also had to answer the questions. Well, this stayed with me for the rest of my life.
Herman loved sharing the Bible's message of a peaceful future with his fellow citizens of Zwolle, showing that the day will come when nations no longer will go to war against each other. However, things were about to change. In 1939, neighboring Germany started World War II. Because the Nazis were set on exterminating Jehovah's Witnesses, many of them had to flee the country. Moved by unselfish love, Herman opened his home to offer them shelter.
One day my father said to my mother, "Lies, I received a letter from the society. A brother is coming to stay with us." My mother said, "Oh, Herman, this can't go on like that. We won't be able to feed all of them." To which my father replied, "But Lies, I'm a butcher. There will be enough meat for all."
On May 10, 1940, Germany invaded the Netherlands. Now, Herman and his family were also at risk of falling prey to the Nazi regime.
Among their neighbors was a family that was very active in pro-German politics during the war. Another man was responsible for the arrest of a significant number of Jews. And between these two lived the Van Elburg family.
Eventually, Herman was betrayed to the police and was arrested. His arresters were determined to get information concerning the people he was helping. The police resorted to violence, beating him severely. Due to his love for his fellow Christians and his love for God, Herman kept his lips sealed.
Mr. Van Elburg never revealed any names. During the war, that meant signing your own death warrant.
Not knowing what had happened to her husband, Lis van Elburg went to the local police station. But while she was away, the authorities raided their home.
Suddenly, the door flung open and 2 men entered the room and started moving things around. They pushed the table to one side, pulled up the carpet, and started looking under the floor. They found all the literature we had hidden, as well as clothing of brothers, which my father had hidden in the cavity wall.
The authorities confiscated the literature Herman had hidden in his home.
The literature found at his place wasn't his, but that of his congregation. But he never mentioned the names of those who had brought it. That, to me, makes this very special.
Unwilling to waver in their determination to protect their fellow believers, Herman and Lis van Elburg were both imprisoned.
Together with my grandfather, I visited my mother. We had to walk across the huge courtyard. While we were walking, I suddenly hear, "Henny." And there was my father, and he gave me an apple. That's the last I ever saw of my father.
Eventually, Herman and Lis was sent to concentration camps. Herman was sent to Dachau. Liz was transferred to the Ravensbrück concentration camp. While she returned home after a while, Herman van Elburg did not. He died on February 17, 1943, at the age of 30, leaving behind his bereaved wife and 2 children.
Of course, the witnesses as a whole were deeply impacted by the war. What really strikes me is that they never considered themselves heroes.
Herman was one of at least 132 Jehovah's Witnesses in the Netherlands who died at the hands of the Nazi regime for their belief in a better world under the kingdom of God. All they had to do to be freed was to renounce their faith, or, as in the case of Herman van Elburg, simply provide names of fellow believers.
To love your brothers more than you love yourself, that really meant something to him. Down to this very day, I pray every day that I may be just like them.
How important it is to maintain our love for our brothers and sisters. After all, love was the motivating force behind Brother Van Elburg's actions. Are we prepared to show such love for our brothers if persecution were to break out in the near future? Many of us may confidently say yes. Others of us might say, I hope so. What might be a good gauge of our spiritual mettle now? What if a misunderstanding or disagreement happens between us and another brother or sister in the congregation? Does love come to the fore and cover the rift? If you have your Bible in hand, please open to Romans chapter 12, verses 17 and 18. Are we now exercising the quality of love to the full by being quick to restore peace? Verse 17 and 18. Return evil for evil to no one. Take into consideration what is fine from the viewpoint of all men. If possible, as far as it depends on you, be peaceable with all. Yes, keeping peace in the congregation today will help prepare us for the future. With that in mind, pay special attention to the following video describing how one sister took the initiative to make peace.
There are times when peace can be threatened. I found that out firsthand. We both said things we wish we hadn't. I thought she was just being too sensitive. I couldn't even concentrate on the meeting. I thought, why is she overreacting? I felt like telling someone, maybe I should talk to my friends. I thought about calling a relative. Or maybe I should just go to the elders. was disturbing my sleep. It's all I could think about. The next day, I volunteered to work at a Kingdom Hall project. But earlier that morning, I read Matthew 5:23 and 24, where it says, "If then you are bringing your gift to the altar, and there you remember that your brother has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar and go away. First, make your peace with your brother, and then come back and offer your gift." How could I make a sacrifice to Jehovah when I'm not at peace with my sister? I had to leave my gift and first make peace. We really talked from the heart. I didn't want to lose my sister. And she didn't want to lose me. It's amazing how wonderful it feels when you make peace. I am so happy. I not only gained my sister back, but I gained a truer and deeper friend. My relationship with the congregation is stronger, and I feel closer to Jehovah.
What a great example for us to imitate. Never allow a rift to develop. Take action immediately so that we can keep the congregation united. The spiritual paradise in our congregations is a beautiful foregleam of what it'll be like in the new world. And if we make full use of theocratic education by means of our literature, meetings, our schools, or even this program, we can be confident that Jehovah's Holy Spirit can spur us on to make even further progress. That brings to mind the words of the 34th Psalm, verse 8. Taste and see that Jehovah is good. Happy is the man who takes refuge in him. Yes, if we follow the psalmist's advice, we can be sure that our relationship with Jehovah will keep growing. To conclude our program, we'd like to show you these images of brothers and sisters taking part in public witnessing in San Diego, California, in western United States. As in many other cities around the world, areas with high pedestrian traffic are prioritized so as to reach as many as possible. May Jehovah's blessing be with all of you brothers and sisters around the globe. This is JW Broadcasting in Brooklyn, New York.